Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and this is Where Are They Now for February 2022. We're taking a look at the reviews I put out last year in February, going over what I haven't played since, what hasn't changed, and what has changed in some way, shape, or form. This particular month, I'm going to save you some time and say, barely any changes. We have a long list of things that I've played or reviewed or whatnot. We have a long list of things I've reviewed, but most of them were prototypes or games that I didn't review favorably enough to actually hold on to, which means there's a whole lot of games that haven't changed. There's going to be 5 in the games I continue to play, but my opinion hasn't changed much, and then 2 that sort of a little bit have changed, but only partially. Basically, I got rid of them, but my opinion hasn't changed much. But let's go ahead and dive into that. As usual, timestamps down below by section. You can check them out. Starting off the bat with Iron Force. Iron Force is from, oh my gosh, what's the name of the game? It's from Ice Cool. The people who did Ice Cool did Iron Force, which is another version of Ice Cool that kind of has 2 layers and a little pop-up way to get into the layer. Very cool concept, but ultimately it's a dexterity game. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It's not as much for me, not one, I enjoyed it, but not one that I need to keep around personally. We have Astro Knights, which I gave a 4. I really liked it, and I haven't received a copy of it yet, so I haven't really played it yet. It's still, ambiently out there. We'll talk about Astro Knights whenever it shows up again. This is a prototype I covered. We have Kingdoms Forlorn. Oh, and Astro Knights is based on Anne's End. Same idea as Anne's End, just very different implementation to it, or a slightly different implementation to it. We have Kingdoms Forlorn. I gave that a 2 out of 5. It's just not for me. I don't think it's necessarily a bad game. In fact, more than that, I'll double down on that and say, I think you'll probably like it. Based on the fact that I recently covered, Aeon's Trespass Odyssey from the same publisher has arrived and is getting a lot of people who love it, and for me it was fiddly and too much, and I think Kingdoms of Forlorn is fiddly and too much for me. Yes, there's going to be people down below who are like, Alex, what do you mean by fiddly, and back it up, and for me it was fiddly. We can have that conversation another time, or you can just watch my entire video on what I did and didn't like about it, but again, I think it's not for me. I think it's very ambitious, I think it's very cool, and I think a lot of people will like it. I just won't be one of those people. Then we have Granja from Board and Dice. They did a deluxe master set of this game. I really liked it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I don't know if it's a keeper long term. I don't know yet. Ultimately, it's a midweight Euro that's a 4, and I usually keep 4.5s or higher in that category. 4 to 5 is a good game. For games that aren't getting played that much, which are midweight Euros, I have 15 of them, so in my generally permanent collection at a given point, and they don't get played or tabled that often, so I just usually don't keep anything unless it's a 4.5 or higher. Granja, though, I did back it. I am hoping that the various modules bump it up for me. Ultimately, I very much enjoy it, and I'm just curious whether any modules bump it to a 4.5 or not. Then we have Tiny Ninja Heroes. Tiny Ninja Heroes I gave a 2.5 out of 5. It was a system of little 2 small box games that I didn't particularly enjoy, although fun fact, I did recently cover Tiny Ninja Tournament. They have another game in their line, but thematically in the line, gameplay's totally different. It's kind of a series of 5 carnival games. I don't know what goes up in what order as far as videos, but that will be a campaign launching on GameFound at some point. And I'll have coverage of Tiny Ninja Tournaments, and I really like that one. Very different genre. But Tiny Ninja Heroes, that I reviewed last year in February, not for me. We have the Night Cage. Gave it 3 out of 5. I thought the Night Cage did some things really cool. Thematically, it gave you a very intense atmosphere, and mechanically, it gave you an okay game that I don't personally need to play again. We have Doomlings that I gave a 2.5 out of 5. Very much a card-based, take that style game. Very cute as far as the art goes, but mechanically not for me. I find that there is one game in that genre that I do tend to play with my kids, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's from the people who did Unstable Unicorns. Not Casting Shadows, that's the new one. There's one from the people who did Unstable Unicorns in that game of I play a card and I hurt you and whatnot that I enjoyed a bit more, but still be a 3 out of 5, maybe a 3.5, depends on your rating of the category or for my own personal taste. Either way, Doomlings, very charming, very cute. If you like that style of game, by all means check it out, but I don't like that style of game, so it's a 2.5 out of 5 for me. We have Smile Islands from Lucky Duck Games, gave it a 3 out of 5. A totally okay game, had a fun time with it, but not necessarily one that I need to play again. It was a little too ambient in terms of just what it was doing. Just didn't overall impress me. It was totally fine, but didn't impress me. We have Vagrantsong. I gave that one a 3.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed many aspects of Vagrantsong while also having some complaints about others. And not really complaints. I think Vagrantsong is phenomenally well done. I think it's fantastic. And I think the art, the aesthetic, the story, the unique monsters and bosses you're fighting, I think a lot of things were tremendous about Vagrantsong. For me, though, it's one that I liked it enough that I dove into it for a bit. I don't remember how many scenarios I played, but I played a chunk of the way through it. But I think a big part of it for me is I found it very hard to constantly play it correctly because every boss was their own unique set of rules, and then there's what the tokens did when you draw from the bag, what happens when the monster switched. I found I was never really playing a scenario correctly, and so for me it was and the overall decision space. And the overall decision space felt a little bit lacking for me, meaning it wasn't that often that I was like, ooh, what am I going to do, this or this? Most of the stuff I dealt felt like it was the obvious move at the time. I'm going to use this ability because this is the current board state. I didn't feel a ton of nuance in the gameplay. That combined with the fact that there were a lot of rules overhead to keep track of things correctly meant that for me, I really enjoyed and appreciated many aspects of it, but I also got rid of it. We have Motor City. I gave that one a 4 to 5. That's from the same people who brought you Fleet the Dice game and Three Sisters. And Motor City I really enjoyed, and I'm waiting for it to show up. And as soon as it does, it's going to continue to be a 4 to 5, I assume, because I like that genre. That's the genre of, you know, cross off this roll and write genre, roll dice, do this, cross off that, get this bonus, do this, do that turn. Really enjoyed it. Had a lot of fun with Motor City. We have Twin Palms. Gave that a 3.5 to 5. It was a trick-taking game that was totally fine. Totally enjoyed it. Totally enjoyed it. I enjoyed my play of I enjoyed my plays of Twin Palms. I had a good time with it, but it was less nuanced or intricate than some other games in the trick-taking genre. So, for instance, Ghost of Christmas, I prefer that. The Crew, I prefer that. Or what's the other one recently? Oh my gosh, there's another one I'm blanking on. Ghost of Christmas. There's another, Cat in a Box. Enjoy that. So there's a lot of games in this general genre, and I enjoy some of those more. Twin Palms was totally fine. We have Flourish from Starling Games. I gave that one a 3 out of 5. It was okay. I wasn't overly impressed with what Flourish was doing, and I was disappointed in it too, because it came from like the creators of Reverdale and Starling Games, and I thought it'd be super amazing, and it was okay. I played infinitely better games as far as drafting and gathering cards and trying to combine them. It was not the worst. It wasn't. It just was okay. Then we had Ryozen. Ryozen was a 3.5 out of 5. This is a prototype I covered. A worker placement with a degree of like different phases to it and getting control. It had some very fun elements of screwage in it. It had some upgrading your workers elements that I liked. Some aspects of the game I really enjoyed. Some aspects I wasn't yet quite sold on. That's when I believe they're sending me a copy. I'm happy to continue to play it tentatively. I don't know if I will necessarily. It's hard to justify spending time at a 3.5 when you have games that you like more. I liked Ryozen. I thought it was fine, but not like, again, there's aspects I will miss. Like the upgrading the workers was really fun. The worker placement, there were aspects I enjoyed, but the full package I don't think I loved. I think I liked it. I liked it a decent amount. Then we have Trekking Through History. Trekking Through History I gave a 3 out of 5. That's a lighter game from, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name. But that's a lighter game that I enjoy Trekking Through History. Again, I don't think Trekking Through History is one that I overly need to dive into. It's a lighter experience that it's the kind of thing that I might table if I'm playing it with family members or gateway gamers, but it's not one I would otherwise table. And that's the whole category of games I haven't played again. Again, a whole lot of prototypes and games that just weren't a fit for me, so that's a very long list as far as February, which means it's a very short list as far as the remaining stuff. As far as the games that haven't changed, first of all, Rolling Heights. Gave that a 4 to 5, and yes, I continue to play it after my review, even though it's a prototype. That's why I'm able to continue saying, you know, hasn't changed, even though, as opposed to haven't played. I really like Rolling Heights. I can see it going to a 4.5. I'm not sure though, because the gameplay on its own is 4.5, but it doesn't do a lot to mix up the experience, so it's still a 4 for now. We'll see what time does to it. I don't know. Time can make it go better. Time could make it go worse. I don't think it'll go lower than a 4. I really like Rolling Heights. From AEG, to me, I prefer it over Quacks of Quedlinburg. I prefer it over Cubitos. I think it's the best, most streamlined, most fun out of the system. But I like all 3 of those games, so take that with a grain of salt. But Rolling Heights, gave it a 4 to 5. Opinion has not changed. I have continued to play it. I have not played it in a while, though, because eventually they did ask for the prototype back, so I no longer have that anymore, unfortunately. We have Wreckland Run on the table over here. Gave this one a 4 to 5 from Renegade Games. This is a solo game in the same vein as Under Falling Skies, or not Under Falling Skies, what's the other game from them? Warp's Edge, the Simply solo line from Renegade Games. I like Warp's Edge a lot. I also like Wreckland Run a lot. I prefer Wreckland Run. Warp's Edge had a bit more, both of them have luck to it, but the bag building aspect of Warp's Edge, either way, we're not talking about Warp's Edge right now. We'll talk about that another time. But I really enjoy Wreckland Run. I thought it gave you a very solid little campaign solo adventure as far as how you build up your buggy and go through it. It's the kind of game that I might get rid of once I'm done going through the campaign. Like, I don't know if this is one that I continue to dive into or not. I enjoy it, I do, but I also have a lot of solo games in this genre, and Under Falling Skies, the Oniverse, things like that. Friday, I have a bunch of games in the genre that give me a similar experience. For right now, Wreckland Run stays around. I give it a 4 to 5. It's still a 4 or 5. Still enjoying it. We'll see what happens when I finish the whole game or all that. We have Lorenzo Magnifico. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, specifically with the expansion. That's with the expansion built in, it's a 4.5 out of 5. Base game Lorenzo, I gave a 4 to 5, but I still have both. I still love both. I still play both. I think it's an excellent Euro game and one that, again, base game combined with expansion, absolutely adore, and I'm always happy to play it. Hasn't gone up, hasn't gone down, it's a 4.5. We have the Reckoners Steelslayer, or more specifically the Reckoners, and then with the expansion Steelslayer, gave that a 4.5. The Reckoners on its own was a 4. The Reckoners with Steelslayer, similar to Lorenzo Magnifico, it went up by half a point. I like what Steelslayer adds. It adds more variability, it adds more characters, it adds more locations, more bosses you can fight against, so it just adds more to the Reckoners experience in a good way. Just gives you more ways to mix up the experience in a way that keeps the Reckoners experience very fresh. I already love the Reckoners, and this is just more good stuff for it. Highly recommend the Reckoners. It's an expensive game. I will warn you with that. It's a cooperative, expensive game, but I really enjoy what it's doing. And then lastly, in the hasn't changed category, we have Unsettled over here. Gave it a 5 out of 5. I haven't played it that much since covering it. I may have played it, I think, twice more. I may have done it twice more, maybe 3. I don't know, I'd have to look back. But the Unsettled, I love this game. It's amazing. It's phenomenal. The only real issue with it is that no, there's no real issue with it. Is that it's just in terms of playability. It's that it's one that I definitely prefer with other players compared to solo. I've played it both ways and I like it both ways, but I prefer with other players, which means it gets tabled a little less often. I should table it more. I think Unsettled is fantastic. I should table it more. It's still a 5 out of 5. Amazing game from Orange Nebula. And then as far as the games that have changed in some way, and usually this is sometimes a rating change, sometimes it's just an issue of, you know, hey, something about it changed. In both these cases, it's not a rating change. In both these cases, they left my collection change. We have Gorinto, which I gave a kind of split rating. Gorinto is a 3.5 out of 5 in the 2-player head-to-head. And then the team-based version, where you have 2 teams facing off in this abstract game from, oh my gosh, the name of the company is... Name of the company. Oh, they do so many games. Oh my gosh, it's going to bother me. Gorinto. Oh, this bothers me. I'm sorry, I'm just blanking on the name of the Gorinto. They have the Artemis Odyssey from Grand Gamers Guild. There we go, thank you. Gorinto from Grand Gamers Guild is a 2-player abstract with a 4-player mode as well. The 4-player mode is actually incredibly strategic as far as how you kind of balance the goals that are between each player, and I really like that, and that mode is a 4 to 5, but the regular abstract is a 3.5 to 5. I go into that in my review. The short version of it is, at the end of the day, Gorinto is a game that I primarily was playing a 2-player, and for me, ultimately, there are other 2-player abstracts I prefer, like TAC, Mind Management, Santorini, oh my gosh, Yinch and Tsar. Those are going to be like the abstracts I hold on to. The 4-player mode was a little better and gave it more reason, more incentive to hold on to it, but at the end of the day, 4-player games, I'm usually playing other things. So I did get rid of it, but I think it's great. 3.5 base game, 4 as far as the 4-player mode. And then lastly, we have Libertalia, specifically the new version. Libertalia Winds of Galecrest from Stonemaier Games. I gave it a 4 to 5. It had some different upgrades to the core Libertalia system. My biggest problem with Libertalia, and I've said this before, and I said this at the time, and well, since, and I've talked about it before, but Libertalia, for me, the problem is that at higher player counts, where it's theoretically, because Libertalia has a nice range, you can play it solo in the new version from Stonemaier. You can also play it at 2 to like 6 players, I want to say, maybe 2 to 5, but I think 2 to 6. The problem I have with it is at higher player counts, I find Libertalia to be random. That it feels more like a party game almost. Like, hey, we're just going to play cards and see what happens. There's too much to control for. The mental mind game of, I think you might do this, and I think you might do this, and I can kind of try to think through how to play the right part at the right time. That works well at like 3 players, 4 players a little bit, and then 2 players a little less so. It feels more head-to-head. So Libertalia to me really is best at 3, good at 4, 5 and 6 a little too party-ish, 2 not so much. And that's just put it in a spot where I wasn't really going to pick it over other 2 to 3 player games. For me, almost half the appeal of Libertalia is the larger player count, but that's where I like it less. So great game. I gave it a 4 to 5. I still would give it a 4 to 5, but it's just with a caveat around how it fits into my collection and my playstyles that I'm just less likely to table it over other games in that weight class, length, genre, all of that. And that is where we are with this particular Where Are We Now? Where Are They Now? These are the games I reviewed last February. February 2022, a lot less things as far as I kept. Went through a bunch of reviews, bunch of content and all that stuff, but just between prototypes and games that just didn't do it for me, this is a less interesting episode where fewer things changed. In any case, we'll see you next month where Are They Now for March 2022, and I have no idea. I have no idea what that looks like. I don't know if it's going to be interesting, not interesting, kind of depends on what I played and what I kept. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.